Okay, let's talk about the double jeopardy clause. First, let's talk about penalties for violating the double jeopardy clause. I should do that more. Start with the penalties. A lot of people think it's some kind of joke when I post about penalties for violating the rule of laws, the oath, But yeah, there's penalties for every law written for violating those laws. Penalties for violating the double jeopardy clause involves remedies for the defendant, such as the dismissal of charges with prejudice. If you remember the young man I talked about, dismissal of charges with prejudice when he told the judge that, that's what you're going to do. Penalties for violating the double jeopardy clause involves remedies of the defendants, such as dismissal of charges with prejudice, which means they cannot be retried. For prosecutors, potential consequences include disciplinary actions or contempt charges. If the violation is due to prosecutorial misconduct, which I mention quite often, or bad faith, it can bar a retrial, and in some cases, this court may have to consider civil penalties for the government, were punitive in nature. Consequences for the defendant. If the court finds a violation, all charges related to that offense must be dismissed and cannot be brought again in the future. Okay, did you hear me? Okay. So if you know anybody with a criminal case, you're going to want to listen up, because the double jeopardy clause is violated quite often. It's used as intimidation. We'll get into that when I start reading about the double jeopardy clause. Okay, so consequences for the defendant: dismissal with prejudice. Okay. If a court finds a violation, all charges must be related to that offense and must be dismissed and cannot be brought again in the future. Bar to retrial. A retrial can be barred if the prosecution intentionally caused a mistrial. Consequences for the prosecution. Disciplinary actions. Prosecutors who violate the double jeopardy rules can face disciplinary action. Remember, that's violating the oath as well, so violating the oath has its penalties. Fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. Contempt charges. It's also ethics violations. Same penalties there. Prosecutors who violate the double jeopardy clause rules can face disciplinary actions. Contempt charges. A judge can impose contempt charges on a prosecutor who intentionally violates double jeopardy protections. Factors determining violations: retrial after acquittal or conviction. Double jeopardy clause prohibits being tried for the same offense again after an acquittal or a conviction. Multiple punishment. It also prohibits multiple criminal punishments for the same offense. And that's where it always comes in. It happened to me when I was 17. The cops arrested me, told me if I signed this paper, I'll only go to prison for one charge, throughout some, I forgot, 20, 30 years, something like that. And I said, no, I wanted a lawyer. So they beat the crap out of me and told me if I didn't sign that, they were going to start adding charges on me. And they pounded me a little more, and then they had the people that were supposed to identify me, and there was no lineup. They just had me handcuffed to the wall, pointed at me, said, hey, that's Mario Casares, this is the guy. The first 5 witnesses couldn't identify me. They brought the last one in, and that was the one that identified me. Out of over 100 people, they brought in the only ones that said it was me. And out of the 6, only one could identify me. So anyways, they wound up charging me with 2 charges. Then the state's attorney came in and told me if I take the plea deal, just sign this and they'll talk to the judge and not to give me so much time. I said no. Let's go to trial. I didn't do this. So it wound up to 4 charges by the time I got to the court, and they kept upping the charges and prolonging the trial. Now remember, I told you about a quick and speedy trial. There's limitations on that. Once that's violated, the case can be thrown out just as easily as violating the double jeopardy clause. So they'll use that as an intimidation, add on charges, and the judge won't say anything, and neither will your lawyer, because that means billable items. So they can't do that, and they will do that. They will violate the double jeopardy clause, which I'm telling you the violations and exactly where they'll do it and why they'll do it. So, if you've been sitting in jail waiting for your case to come to trial more than 90 days, your quick and speedy trial, your right to a quick and speedy trial has been breached, and you tell the judge, hey, whatever happened to quick and speedy trial? He can't say, well, you didn't ask for it if it's guaranteed, if it's a right. But that's what they'll tell you. You didn't bring it up. Did you talk to your lawyer? My lawyer didn't tell me. He also probably didn't tell you about a probable cause hearing. And if you do that on the first day, it could be thrown out the first day because there's usually no probable cause for arrest. I've been there quite a few times, okay? Prosecutorial misconduct or bad faith. In case of mistrial, double jeopardy can sometimes preclude a retrial or a mistrial was a result of prosecutorial misconduct or bad faith. Civil actions as punishment in certain situations. A civil penalty that is so punitive in nature could be determined a criminal punishment for double jeopardy purposes. Okay. So these are the penalties, and it even mentions the double jeopardy clauses there. It prohibits receiving multiple criminal punishments for the same offense. And that happens to almost everybody, especially when you got a public defender. And then when you hire a lawyer, you're only hiring their brand, their name. And then they're going to charge you for your rights. Okay. So that's penalties for violating the double jeopardy clause. Here it is. And here's the double jeopardy clause. The Fifth Amendment double jeopardy clause protects individuals from being tried punishment twice for the same offense. Okay. When I went to prison in 79 and 80, just before I turned 18, I found a few things. I found the rules of professional conduct, and I was already arguing the double jeopardy clause. I already knew that, and I couldn't find the limitations on a quick and speedy trial till sometime later. It wasn't until after I got out of prison, so they violated that. They spent months, nearly a year, trying to convince me to take a plea and intimidate me by violating the double jeopardy clause by compounding the charges. It was like a girl got shot in the ass with a low caliber bullet. They had her testify, doctor's report, but that was it. It wasn't life-threatening, but I didn't do it. And everybody in that damn neighborhood knew it. The police, when they interviewed everybody, they picked the only people that said I did it. And when I wanted the police to testify, no, we don't need him. And, no, I want him to testify to what's on the police report, because there's no way. And then plus the lawyer told me if I take a jury trial and lose, the judge will get mad and give me more time, which scared the crap out of me. But eventually I found out that was illegal. That was disinformation. a lawyer lied to me, and that's illegal if you read the rules of professional conduct. So, second prosecution after being acquitted, you know that. Second prosecution after conviction, being tried again for the same offense after being convicted by trial or plea. And multiple punishments. I keep telling people about that. Multiple punishments. Receiving multiple punishments for the same offense. So remember, and when you cite your the attorney for effective assistance of counsel in a criminal any case, but in a criminal case, when you set tell the judge to cite your attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel, the prosecutor for prosecutorial misconduct, for both of them for multiple violations of the rules of professional conduct, and it is mandatory to report misconduct in the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, so that you are legally required to report them as well as yourself. And the lawyers are legally required to report each other, you and themselves as well. Nobody abided by or enforced the rules of professional conduct, Your Honor. Your Honor, your failure to report these attorneys and yourself for the violations of the rules and the codes thus far has been contempt of the very court you preside over. Your failure to do so now would continue that contempt and easily proves not only ineffective assistance of counsel, but the ineffectiveness of the court, proving a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. You should all be charged for deprivation of rights. You should all be charged for a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. You should all be charged for ethics violations. You should all be charged for violating the oath. You should all be charged for violating the basic oath or basic obligations of public service. Now I expect you to file charges with the appropriate authorities as required by law and dismiss this case with prejudice, with extreme prejudice. Okay, people, that's people say I'm lucky in court, people that haven't been there, even people that have. Oh, you're lucky. It's the judge is calling for a sidebar, going into the chambers with the lawyers and coming back out and throwing a case out. That's not lucky. That's just remembering a lot of stuff that I read. That's all. And hopefully you'll take the time out to learn it and read it. I had to memorize it because it was in books in my day. But it's on the internet now, so it's not like you got to go anywhere. All right, y'all. Nothing but peace and love to you, all right? That last video I did on this guy, yeah, he did say that. I looked it up. Describe the rule of law as endangered. In the last video I told you there's penalties for violating the rule of law. Penalties are fines, restitution, removal from public service, and incarceration, and if death was involved, the death penalty. Okay, but I gave you the law. It's on the net. Look it up. Penalties for violating the rule of law. I'm gonna look this guy up, see what he talks about on the internet, maybe make a few suggestions. Like start locking up everybody for violating all these laws I talk about that nobody's going to jail for, that they legally required to go to jail for, But these are public servants, and they're not going to lock up our other public servants, It's ridiculous, Cops, cops investigating cops, lawyers investigating lawyers, judges investigating judges, politicians investigating each other or themselves. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. And I forgot I rarely watch my videos. I haven't counted them. But, I could go on forever about what's supposed to be happening versus what isn't happening, about you living under the color of law. I know I'm a peace and happiness for you. If you don't have it now, it will be in your future. Jew is the creator. Made you evolve. Open your eyes and you'll open your mind. I'm not asking you to believe me, I'm asking you to believe your eyes. Okay, that's the end of this conversation. Okay. I just leave these tabs open for memory. Thank you and good night.